Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mic Drop Show, where we bring clarity and structure to real estate and real estate financing and strategy. Hey, I'm Mike Morawski, and every Wednesday at 7:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central, so it's a little bit early here. We take a closer look at the framework that actually protects real estate investors. This episode is not instructional. It's corrective. Okay, so let me just say that again. This is not instructional, it's corrective. So, if you're here listening in, maybe for the first time, you're in the right place. If you're looking for steps, for checklists, or for something you can immediately implement on your own, then this is the conversation you're going to want to be in this morning. Listen, I'm here every week. I love that you are checking in, listening in. I'm going to bring you some information today, as I usually do, that will help your real estate journey here in 2026. If you have comments, use the chat. I'll try and get those questions answered for you today. If not, we'll get them answered on a future podcast for you. But this is about judgment this morning. And, everybody says don't judge, right? But this is about judgment this morning. And what happens when people substitute their confidence for structure. It's really about how do we structure deals? How do we structure terms? How do we structure those real estate acquisitions? And, going into 2026 here, I think structure is something that we all want to look at a little bit more. Most financial damage doesn't come from bad intentions. It comes from misplaced certainty. People don't usually fail because they didn't try hard enough. They fail because they acted on partial understanding and assumed that the rest would just work itself out. And we can't do real estate in that way, in that form or fashion. We have to have that structure. This episode's about the gap, the space between knowing what you know and what you need to know. And I really want to try and help you understand that a little bit more. So how do we get you there? As I said, this episode's about that gap, the space between knowing enough and being informed and taking action. One of the most dangerous phases in investing is, I get the idea of how to do it. So let me give you a little story around that, right? When I first went into the apartment business and I started syndicating multifamily, I thought I knew enough, right? I knew that you raised private equity from individuals, you married it with a great real estate deal, you stayed in the middle, and as long as everything went well, you did well. Well, understanding the ideas is not the same as understanding the risk that's involved, the boundaries, the structure. So most investors get confused. They confuse things like familiarity with competence. They confuse things like exposure with experience. They get confused with information and judgment. They listen to podcasts, they watch interviews, even just like this, and they follow people who speak confidently. And at some point, they decide, hey, I know enough to move forward. And either they take action or they don't take action. I've seen so many people say, hey, I know this, and they just don't take the right action or take enough action. That's usually the moment where risk quietly shifts from managed to assumed. This is where people get uncomfortable. Can you operate in an uncomfortable space and do more? Because the moment that you start pulling the thread, you realize that you have much more confidence or borrowed confidence than you didn't earn. And you've got to earn it, right? You earn it by taking action. Most self-directed mistakes didn't come from laziness. They came from overestimating and understanding what actually protects you from those mistakes. Knowing the vocabulary does not mean understanding and exposure. Following someone else's success does not mean that you share their structure. You have to understand these things, and trying to reserve engine trying to reverse engineer things uh, overcomes doesn't overcome your confidence or the ability to take action. That's why this show doesn't teach execution. Execution without judgment is how people quietly hurt themselves. You know, if you want the full context, not just tactics, not just hacks, but disciplined investors actually think about structure and protection in what they're doing. They understand the strategy, they understand the fundamentals. I walk through that live inside a free masterclass that I've been doing. And this free masterclass, it's not a webinar, it's not motivational. It's about understanding where the real edges and the real dangers actually are in real estate, but how to overcome them and what to look for, where to find the best deals, how to talk to sellers, right? I give you a framework around how to go and structure creative finance deals. I really don't have a lot to talk about this morning, but I want to invite you to my masterclass coming up. That's really all there is for this morning's Mic Drop show. Make sure that you're taking corrective action, that you are doing things in a proper format, in a proper way. Remember, understanding is just the first step, but the structure you put in place is what keeps you safe. I've been doing a 6-week program right now. And tonight on my 6-week program, we're going to cover the contracts and the option agreements and the lease agreements and the things that you need to have in place in this structure. And if you're somebody who's saying, hey, you know what? I really want to be in real estate, but I want to do it the right way. And I know that I can go do real estate, whether traditionally or non-traditionally, but I need to have that structure. Then you're somebody who's going to want to come to the master class. It's going to be on February 10th. I'll walk through a full context inside the free master class. I'll pull the links. I'll give you the framework what I want you to do, though, is put a comment in the comment section and just say, hey, just put masterclass in there. I want to come to the masterclass. But thanks for joining me this morning. We're going to see you next Wednesday. We'll be back here. We might have a guest. We might just be back with some question and answer. But next Wednesday, 7:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central. We'll look forward to seeing you then. And meantime, I hope that you have a great week. 2026, and let me just say this, 2026 is going to be a great year for real estate. If you're somebody who's been thinking, hey, I want to get into real estate, I know that there's opportunity in real estate, that I want to own real estate and operate it. You know what? 2026 is going to be your year. I've always said for 3 decades, if I could have the wind at my back when that market shifts, and ride that wave, that you're going to be successful. And that's what I'm saying for you. We're right at the beginning of the market shift, the change. Why not get involved today? So if you're somebody who's been sitting back saying, hey, I want to be in real estate, or you're somebody who's been in real estate saying, hey, I want to take this to the next level this year, then you're going to want to join us for that masterclass. We'll see you on February 10th. Go ahead and throw a comment in the comments masterclass, and we'll get you the information on it. You have a great week, everyone.